is Chima. I am Nigerian and a person living with a disability because I live with a rare condition called Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease. Today is International Day for persons living with disabilities. A lot of things don't work in this country, so living in Nigeria is hard. Now add living with a disability to the equation and you find out that it's just one hell of a task. There's a whole lot of challenges that people living with disabilities face daily. First, there's the physical aspect that has to do with whatever disability that one lives with and the things that go on in your body. And then there's the psychological aspect and the financial aspect and all. I mean, you wake up in the morning and after dealing with all these issues, you still have to do with the societal issues that are out there. These societal issues, they can be wrapped under or into inaccessibility, stereotypes and exclusion, lack of representation, and discrimination. I mean, it's just a whole lot. It's a whole lot. See, living with a disability is not a death sentence, yeah, because we still have life. But you know what else would make us come alive? It's being able to live our best lives, irrespective of whatever disability that we live with. But then there are just a whole lot of hindrances that do not make this easy at all. There are about 25 million people living with disabilities in Nigeria. As big as that number is, the society was not built to serve us, to a large extent the way it serves people, the able-bodied people.
I once heard someone say that our environment disables us more than our actual disability. And I said to myself, no truer words than this.
If we are to talk about these issues, man, it's gonna be, it's gonna take a whole lot. It's like we can exhaust all our options to get things to talk about when it comes to people living with disabilities in Nigeria. The thing is that a lot of people do not get to see us in so many spaces, and that is why they do not prepare for us. It's like we exist, but they do not know that, oh, these people, they can be in these places, they can be in these spaces. And so it's like everything they do, they just do it for the able-bodied folks, and yeah, we are left out. Now let's start with inaccessibility. When you are here, when you are a person living with a disability, a lot of the things that you get excited about are different. They are different from what a lot of able-bodied folks would be excited about. Like seeing an accessible anything, accessible buildings, accessible bathrooms and toilets,
something as basic as a ramp,
getting a new or a better wheelchair or whatever aid you use, or in fact anything that helps make living with a disability easier for you. It's like whenever you see these things, you get excited. The inaccessibility we face in Nigeria is like everywhere, every single where, especially public buildings. That's the crazy part, because these buildings are to serve people, everyone in Nigeria, able-bodied folks and disabled people alike. So the fact that these structures, are not accessible for us, that is a problem. I thought I was the only person that stairs gave headache or give headache until I saw a friend of mine talk about it on her Instagram story. Like the minute I sight stairs anywhere, it just gives me an instant headache. For someone like me who uses a wheelchair, it's a big deal for me. I always want to ask people how accessible their houses or whatever places we're going to are before I take a step. People living with disabilities, we want to make impact in our world as much as possible. We want to be able to live our best lives. We want to be able to give back as well, to the society. And a lot of times it's in our career path, in the things we choose to do daily to make us happy and be able to give back. That is where we find, these issues. I want to start with being a student. Yeah, of course, not all of us get to have as much education as we should, and living with a disability, a lot of times it's hard to get the kind of education that you want. And now you go to institutions. For someone like me, from my primary school up to my university, there were stairs everywhere. Like on a daily basis, you are climbing steps to go into your classrooms, your lecture halls, every single time. Imagine what I have to go through on a daily basis being in that school environment and it not being accessible. Now, the worst part is for the people who help us having to go to the first, second, third floor just to get us to our classrooms, just to get us to wherever it is that we're going for our lectures. When I was an undergraduate, a lot of times when I get back home, I'm usually exhausted from sitting in the wheelchair for that long to, all the lectures I had to take, moving around under the scorching sun, climbing stairs, and I come back home, I'm exhausted. So exhausted. Mentally, I'm exhausted as well.
There were offices I couldn't get into because their doors were narrow, and sometimes I missed some lectures because they were being held upstairs or on ground floors with no ramps, and there was no one available to help at that moment.
So it's a whole lot, and you're not able to give in so much to your education as you would have loved, because going through all these things, it becomes draining for you. Or let's just imagine that there is someone who has gone to school to studied the law for 5 years, gone to law school, passed the bar exams, and has become a lawyer. And every time you have to go to the court to represent someone, you have to climb stairs, in and out. This is especially for disabled people who have mobility issues. They are the ones that have to deal with inaccessibility issues on a daily, and it's really crazy. Or should we talk about a doctor? The other day I was in the hospital, and the stairs I saw around the emergency unit, the stairs I saw there made me wonder. I was like, what exactly is going on in this country? Are these steps supposed to be here? They bring in a patient or someone who is physically challenged. How do they go about, everything? Or is it that they do not think that there could be a physically challenged doctor in this hospital, and so they just kept putting stairs everywhere? Whoa, I thought to myself, this is a hospital, and I thought, things are supposed to be better here, but no. Some months ago, in that same hospital, I had to do a test which required me to climb upstairs, and I saw somewhere beside the stairs it was written, use the elevator at your own risk. Or do we begin to talk about someone who would like to work in a bank or in an office environment? And first of all, how many physically challenged people have you seen working in a bank? It's actually something that should be looked into. Like, I can count. In fact, you can count if you've ever seen a physically challenged person working in a bank. It's like they don't know that physically challenged people also use banks. It's crazy. I've had the worst experiences with banks. One would think that after the Disability Rights Bill was passed into law last year, 2019, that steps would have been taken, or people would have started taking steps to doing these things, making no. People want to wait for the 5 years term that the government has given for them to put things in order before they start, making these things happen. Now, not just that these banks and offices are inaccessible, you get there and the doors are narrow. So if we are to talk about these accessibility issues, once you have mobility issues, no matter the career path you choose to toe, no matter the things you choose to do to, be happy, live your best life, give back to society, make impact, you must encounter it every day. It could be an event host, not being able to get into or around the venue where he or she is hosting the event. It could be a bride not being able to have an accessible bathroom in the venue of her wedding, because if I was a bride, of course my venue has to be as accessible as possible. I won't take a venue which is not accessible. I mean, we provide services too. Being able to sing, being able to perform in an accessible venue, see or have an accessible stage is another thing for performers who have mobility issues. Or what about, say I'm an artist and I have to go buy some supplies, in the market or supermarket or malls or whatever, and I get to your supermarket and it is not accessible. And it's not every time you can send someone to the market to go buy stuff for you, especially if the person is the one who doesn't have eyes for these things. It's a whole lot. Let's not start talking about our religious houses. How accessible are our churches? It's like everywhere in this country is inaccessible. For things like stereotypes and exclusion, it's like there are a whole lot of things that we need to unlearn and relearn when it comes to these things. Some years ago, when I thought of going into face modeling, one of the key things that were on my mind were inaccessibility and inclusion issues, because you see someone who just wakes up one morning and says, oh, I requested for a face model, but the person says, oh, I requested for a model, not someone that looks like this or walks like this. Where in the world, where is there a constitution that states that models have to be a particular way? I mean, these days we see plus size models, because the stereotype was that models have to be slim and tall and this and that. As far as this person is able to model whatever it is that you want them to model and do it well, why bring a stereotype? Why say it has to be this way? Because that is what we are used to. I mean, these days it's quite difficult to see brands that want to incorporate diversity or inclusion into their services and all of that, which is also one of the issues that job seekers who live with disabilities, these are some of the issues that they face. If we are to talk about representation, for me, I feel like accessibility issues plus exclusion issues, it's equal to representation. For us, representation is a big deal. While I was growing up, I grew up with this condition being an invisible disability. And so even though I kept on telling myself that I was fine, I struggled a lot with my self-esteem. I didn't know anyone who lived with a disability like I. I could count the number of people that, I knew personally who lived with one form of disability or the other. Now the thing is that the media definitely plays a big role in representation, very, very much. Sadly, it's like a whole lot of times when the media is, coming into play in these issues, it's always like we are there, we pop up every once in a while to be sources of inspiration to the whole world. Yeah, that's almost what it looks like. This representation thing, it just embodies seeing people like you in books, in the media, in power, in things that you consume on a daily, that make you feel like you belong. It's like seeing people like you smashing ceilings and walls in every field, achieving their goals, and it just kind of makes you feel important. It makes you feel like you matter. It makes you feel like no matter what, no matter the limitations that you face daily, you can also achieve your own goals as well. And of course, it is important for kids to begin to know this at an early age because it helps build their self-esteem. Representation celebrates uniqueness, and it's you walking or wheeling into a room whenever and wherever, and despite knowing that you are different from the rest, you feel comfortable, and unconsciously you exude confidence and excellence instead of feeling out of place. Something that I wish that my young self, knew or experienced at that age. Representation makes room for everyone. It creates room at the table for everyone, no matter who you are or what you are dealing with. Now, one question that has been on my mind for a while is what efforts are being made to include people living with disabilities in a whole lot. Now, I'm particular about the media because I feel like they play a very, very big role in this representation issue. I'm super excited that Nollywood has, should I say, graduated. They have become a big deal. They have grown over the years and they are doing big things, and yeah, I'm so proud to be Nigerian. But what efforts are being made to include people living with disabilities? Are spaces being made for disabled voices? Of course, I might not know a whole lot about filmmaking and all of that, and so I'm not saying that for every film or every story that is being told it should be about disabilities and all of that. It's more like you telling a story about anything, and every now and then you include a person living with a disability in it. It's like you want to tell a story about my sister, and of course my sister has a sister, which is me, who lives with a disability. You have to cast a disabled person. Can we start making use of disabled actors? Can we start putting them on screen to act and play the roles of disabled people? Yeah, can we start doing that? Because I watched a movie sometime of someone, is a well-known actress, and she was playing the role of someone who uses a wheelchair, who was disabled. I think she was involved in an accident or something. And when I watched that movie, I was angry. I just kept shaking my head. I'm like, no, we don't do like this. We don't do like this. We don't act like this. We need authenticity in these movie making spaces, in these media spaces, to let people that actually live with disabilities, let them come play these roles. Because if I were to feature in a movie as a disabled person, of course I know what I, as a disabled person, goes through daily. I can relate to the struggles of a whole lot of disabled people, and so yeah, it might not be difficult for me to play those roles, and that is going to be a booster for the media and representation as regards people living with disabilities. Okay, one thing I would like to tell to able-bodied folks out there, can I say more than one? Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna start by saying accessibility is not a privilege. It is a right that everyone out there is, entitled to. Of course, you might not be living with a disability, but I can't say all this and not talk about the aged people who once upon a time were able-bodied, and as age crept in, they discovered that they are having mobility issues. They probably live with one form of disability or the other right now, and if will make everywhere accessible. You who is able-bodied today, if tomorrow, by the time we all start getting old, things would have already been put in place to make things work for us. So that is one. Two, prepare for us. This is more than a hashtag. It is a cry for so many things. It's a cry for things to be put in place, so that we'll be better opportune to share our gifts, our talents, and our superpowers with the world. We exist, so prepare for us. Well, I would love to host a cooking show on TV, where I get to watch people cook, learn, ask questions, and at the end of the day get to taste the food as well. So yeah, that's something I would love to do. To all people living with disabilities out there, happy International Day for persons living with disabilities. I pray that in all of this craziness and your struggles, you are able to find ways to come out of it stronger, learn a thing or two, and be a better human. Yeah. Thank you so much for watching. Yeah, thank you so much.